On a cold autumn morning, Jack Collins, 40 years old, tailored coat, watch he never checked, eyes that always looked like they were doing math, stepped into a nearly empty corner supermarket where the heater rattled like a tired drum and the glass doors breathed fog with every customer who came and went, and he joined the single checkout line without really seeing it because his mind was in Dubai, in boardrooms and profit curves, until a small voice rose behind him, clear as a bell in winter. Excuse me, ma'am, can I pay later? My baby brother is sick. Jack turned, and there she was, a 5-year-old in a faded red hoodie 2 sizes too big, braids of her own making, holding a carton of milk like it was a crown. Welcome to Nne'folktales, where we share with you an heartfelt stories that will reshape our mindset. Please like and subscribe to my channel for more contents like this. The cashier, Ms. Alvarez, gray bun and kind eyes that had learned not to bend the rules, shook her head. I can't do that, honey, I'm sorry. The girl, who would later say her name was Mia Harper, lifted her chin. I promise I'll bring the money. My mom said soon. Please. Jack heard himself speak before he chose the words. I'll cover it, he said, and Mia looked up with a mixture of caution and relief, the way a stray cat might look at a hand that offered food and could also snatch. You don't have to, she whispered. I can come back. Jack crouched so his eyes met hers. Sometimes, he said softly, we borrow a little help and pay it forward. She studied him as though truth had a face and she needed to see it, then nodded once. Okay, I'll help someone when I can. He paid, the scanner beeped, and the moment seemed small, just milk, but it hummed in the air like a switch had flipped somewhere deep inside him. Nice thing you did, Ms. Alvarez murmured, bagging Jack's groceries one-handed, the other rubbing her wrist as if old injuries had a weather forecast. Lots of families around here need a hand. Jack nodded, distracted, because Mia hugged the milk to her chest and backed away like a person leaving a church, reverent and quick, and he called, Wait, what's your name? She hesitated at the sliding door, the street wind already pulling at her hoodie strings. Mia, she said. Mia Harper. I'm Jack, he replied, then tried to sound casual, tried not to sound like a rich man sniffing around where he didn't belong. Your mom home? Does she need anything else? Mia's eyes flicked to the window where a bus roared past, rattling the glass. She's sick. My brother, too. We're okay. Ms. Alvarez lowered her voice. They're in the brick place on Porter Avenue, the one with the broken intercom, she said, and when Jack looked up surprised, she added, Don't worry, I won't call anyone. Folks around here keep things quiet. Mia hugged the milk tighter. Thank you, she said to Jack, serious as a judge. I'll pay it forward. Promise. Then she turned and ran into the gray morning. Small shoes slapping wet pavement, the door sign closed on a swirl of cold air. Jack stood still, groceries forgotten, while something old and heavy uncurled inside his chest, something like the boy he once was, counting coins for bread. You okay, sir? Ms. Alvarez asked. Jack blinked. Yeah, he lied and carried his paper bags to his car, sat behind the wheel, and did not drive away because the city looked different now, as if he had changed the angle of a picture and suddenly seen what had always been there, but never in focus. He drove eventually, but not to the office where the skyline looked rich and heartless. He drove to the river and parked under a skeletal tree where leaves scraped the roof like fingernails, and he let the heater hum while his pass knocked. Nights in a motel with a flickering sign, a mother named Ruth who smiled through hunger, a promise he made at 12. When I make it, I'll make sure no kid stares at empty shelves. A promise he had somehow misfiled behind mergers and travel lounges and silk ties. And he laughed once, a short broken sound, because all it took to find that lost file was a carton of milk. His phone buzzed. Nadia from legal. Dubai call in 15. And Grayson from development. Green light on Porter redevelopment. Demo crew wants a date. Jack stared at the second message. Zoomed in like words could flinch. Porter Avenue. The brick place with the broken intercom. His project. His crew. His schedule. "You still there?" he muttered to the empty car, as if the boy inside him might answer. He typed back, "Hold." Then he called Grayson. "No demolition," Jack said. "Not yet." "Boss, the council approvals," I said. "Hold." He hung up, put the phone face down, and felt the absurd urge to apologize to a street. He started the engine, turned it off, started it again, spoke aloud, because sometimes saying a thing makes it real. "I'm going to see them." The sky was the color of tin. The wind felt like unpaid debt. And as he pulled onto Porter, past a mural of a hand holding a sunflower, he thought, if kindness is a door, I'm walking through it before it swings shut. He found the building by the stoop with the busted railing and the mailbox stuffed with flyers, then sat a full minute rehearsing how not to sound like a rescue and how to sound like a neighbor. Inside, the hall smelled of bleach and rain, the light bulbs buzzed, and a child somewhere coughed the way old men do, deep and stubborn. Jack pressed a loose button on the intercom until a voice crackled. "Who?" "Jack," he said, then added, "from the store." The door clicked. On the 4th floor, Mia opened first, small fingers tight on the knob, chin up like a brave soldier. "You came." "I brought soup," he lied, then showed the paper bag, crackers, fruit, a thermometer, pediatric syrup, because he had turned into the kind of man who buys a second bag without planning to. "My mom is resting," Mia said. "She gets dizzy." A soft voice floated from the couch inside. "Mia, who is it?" Jack stepped in, removed his shoes without asking. A trick learned from 100 interviews with people who had little. "Shrink yourself." And he saw Nora Harper, mid-30s, hair tied in a scarf, face pale but proud, a toddler sleeping on her chest with flushed cheeks and tiny socks mismatched. "Ma'am," Jack said quietly, "I'm the one who helped with the milk." Nora tried to sit up. "We don't do handouts," she said, breath shallow. "I understand," Jack replied. "This isn't a handout. It's a neighbor thing." Mia tugged his sleeve. "You said pay it forward. We can clean stairs." Jack smiled. "One day, maybe you'll help someone who needs a bus fare and we'll be even." Nora studied him the way Mia had, searching his face for the kind of fine print life hides in people. "What do you want?" she asked. "Nothing," he said, and then told the truth he had not planned to say. "I want to make sure nobody touches this building until your boy is better." Nora's eyes sharpened. "What do you mean, touches?" Jack swallowed. "A company plan to redevelop. I can slow them down." "A company," she repeated, and the toddler stirred. "Whose company?" Jack breathed in, as if oxygen came with courage. "Mine," he said. Silence spread across the small room like spilled tea, seeping under things. Mia blinked. "You're the boss of the people with the orange helmets?" Jack nodded once. Nora's voice lost its tremor and found iron. "So, you came to look at what you're about to take." Jack shook his head quickly. "No. I came because your daughter stood straighter than any man in a suit, because she asked for nothing she didn't need, because I remembered a boy who used to count change by a vending machine and swear he'd grow up to fix doors like this one," he said, gesturing to the apartment's swollen frame. "And because," he added softer, "I forgot for too long." Nora leaned back, eyes glassy not with weakness but with the heat of dignity. "People promise all the time," she said. "Then they vanish." "I won't," Jack said, and felt how thin promises sound until you nail them to actions. "Here's what I can do today. I'll call a doctor I trust. I'll get the intercom fixed by nightfall. I'll put the demolition on hold and review relocation plans with you in the room. We'll find something better together, and not a box with a window a home. No tricks, no clauses." Mia shifted closer, hopeful and suspicious in equal parts. "Can Theo have the orange medicine?" The nurse said orange tastes less yucky. Jack smiled despite the tightness in his throat. "Orange it is." Nora exhaled, a tired, careful sound, then asked the question that decides whether strangers become allies. "Why us?" Jack looked at Mia, then at the sleeping boy, then at the cracked ceiling where water had mapped rivers. Because one little promise can change a whole river's path, he said simply, and I need mine to finally flow the right way. Nora closed her eyes, opened them, and gave the smallest nod a person can give while still meaning yes. All right, Mr. Collins, she murmured. Let's see if you keep your word. Jack left the Harper apartment with a strange lightness in his chest, though the hallway still smelled of damp concrete. He leaned against the rail on the 4th floor and called Dr. Patel, a man who owed him a favor from years ago. I need you to make a house call today, Jack said. No hospital bills, no waiting room. Just help. By evening, the doctor had examined Nora and little Theo, leaving antibiotics and a plan. The intercom was fixed by sundown, just as promised, and when Jack returned to check, Mia was sitting on the stoop in a clean hoodie, swinging her feet. You came back, she said, as if confirming he was real. I said I would. He sat beside her, coat brushing the cold concrete, and she handed him a crayon drawing of a carton of milk with a big smiling sun over it. This is for you. Mom says thank you. Jack stared at the picture longer than necessary. I should be thanking you, he said softly. You reminded me of something I forgot. What's that? Mia asked, tilting her head. That people matter more than buildings. She grinned, gap-toothed, and leaned against him for just a second before running back inside. 2 days later, Jack sat in the conference room with Grayson and the development team. Blueprints spread across the table. We're not tearing Porter down, he said. Not yet. Grayson frowned. Sir, this block is a loss. We've got investors waiting for a green light. Jack leaned forward. Then tell the investors they're waiting a little longer. We're going to do this right. New units, fair leases. No one shoved onto the street overnight. A silence followed. You mean affordable housing? One manager asked carefully. I mean housing that keeps kids like Mia from standing in grocery stores asking to pay later, Jack replied. If we do this, we do it so families come back to a better home, not a pile of rubble. The room buzzed with questions, but Jack was steady. We start with the Harpers. Find them a temporary unit near Mia's school. And make sure no bulldozer touches that block until Nora says she's ready. For the first time in years, the deal on the table felt like something other than numbers. It felt like a win that mattered. Over the next week, Jack visited Porter Avenue almost daily. He helped Nora fill out forms for relocation, brought hot meals from a cafe down the street, and sometimes just sat with Mia while she did her homework at the kitchen table. Do you have kids? She asked one evening, chewing her pencil. Jack hesitated. No, he said finally. I always told myself I'd wait until I wasn't too busy. Turns out I never stopped being busy. Mia nodded as if this was a perfectly reasonable excuse. You can practice with us, she said, sliding him a math worksheet. Jack chuckled and solved a few problems, realizing that somewhere between question 3 and 4, the apartment no longer felt like charity work. It felt like a place he wanted to be. When Theo woke, crying, Jack scooped him up before Nora could rise, walking the boy until he quieted against his shoulder. You're good with him, Nora said quietly from the couch. Maybe, Jack admitted. I just never had a chance to try before. When moving day came, Jack personally oversaw the process, carrying boxes down the narrow stairwell with his jacket off, sleeves rolled. Neighbors peeked through doors, surprised to see a man they knew only from newspaper articles, sweating like everyone else. The new apartment was small but bright, with windows that actually shut and a heater that hummed warmly. Nora stood in the doorway, clutching a dish towel. I don't know how to thank you, she said. Jack shook his head. Don't. Just get better. Mia twirled in the empty living room, her laughter filling the space. This feels like a castle, she exclaimed. Jack crouched down to her level. Every castle needs a queen, he said, glancing at Nora, whose tired face softened into the first real smile he had seen. For dinner, they ate pizza on the floor, Theo gnawing happily on crusts, and Jack found himself wishing the night wouldn't end. But it did, and when he drove home, Jack parked outside his own glass-walled penthouse and stared at it without getting out. The place looked hollow, like a showroom where someone had forgotten to put people in the picture. He thought about calling Nadia to cancel his Dubai trip. Then he didn't just think, he did it. Postpone indefinitely, he told her. I have work here. And he did. Over the next month, Porter's redevelopment plans shifted from luxury lofts to mixed income housing with daycare and a clinic attached. Jack sat through community meetings, listened to residents argue and cry, and finally nod in cautious hope. And every time he felt tired, he pictured Mia's carton of milk drawing pinned on his office wall. It kept him honest. One afternoon, as snow began to fall, Jack found himself back at the Harpers' new apartment. Mia was building a block tower again, this one taller, straighter. I think I'm getting good at this, she said. You are, Jack replied. And so am I. At what? She asked. At keeping promises. Nora joined them with mugs of cocoa, her color restored, her laugh less rare. You really have kept them, she said quietly, handing him a mug. Most people just disappear. Jack looked around the room. Warm light, a sleeping toddler, homework sheets scattered, and thought about how close he had come to letting this street vanish under bulldozers. I was disappearing, too, he admitted. You all reminded me how to stay. Spring came before Jack realized how much had changed. Porter Avenue's first renovated building opened with balloons and a ribbon cutting. Nora and Mia stood beside him. Theo perched on his hip as if it had always been his place. Reporters took photos, asking about the philanthropic turn of Colin's development. Jack just said, sometimes one act of kindness changes everything, and nodded toward Mia. She grinned, holding the scissors with him as they cut the ribbon together. When the crowd cheered, Jack glanced at Nora, who met his gaze steadily, and for the first time in years he felt not like a man who owned buildings, but like a man who belonged somewhere. That night, back in his penthouse, he packed a box, half his suits, most of his cufflinks, and set it aside for donation. The city lights blinked below, but he no longer felt alone above them. He had found a family, found a purpose, and all of it started with a 5-year-old and a carton of milk. Months later, the Porter Avenue project was complete, and the street that had once been gray and crumbling now buzzed with life. Freshly painted walls, flower boxes on windows, children playing without fear of falling through rotten floorboards. Jack stood with Nora and Mia in the middle of the street, watching neighbors carry furniture into their new homes. Mia tugged at Jack's sleeve and pointed at a mural painted on the side of the first renovated building. It showed a little girl holding a carton of milk under a rising sun. A man crouched in front of her, hand extended. That's us, Mia said proudly. Jack swallowed hard, his throat thick. Yes, he said softly, that's where it all started. Nora slipped her hand into his, no longer wary but steady, and smiled up at him. You didn't just save our home, she said. You gave us one. Jack looked at her, at Mia twirling on the fresh pavement, at Theo trying to chase a ball too big for him, and for the first time in his life he understood what it meant to build something that lasted. Not towers of glass, but lives, laughter, and futures. Then let's keep building, Jack said, and in that moment, with the street alive and the air warm with spring, he knew he was no longer just a man with money. He was a man with purpose, and that was worth more than every deal he had ever made. Like and subscribe to my channel for more contents like this, and let us know where you are watching from under the comment section.